la procedura. Qui tutto calmo, sulla griglia di partenza nessuna situazione particolare, c'era da dire una scelta piuttosto bella, tutti i tecnici McLaren a un certo punto si sono trovati a guardare all'interno della Benetton che era stata aperta e mi sono chiesto come mai tutto sommato la macchina è quella vecchia, in effetti dovrebbero curiosare e spiare a Donington, il Gran Premio d'Europa, il prossimo che ci sarà in Inghilterra, e invece poi mi hanno fatto capire che in effetti le loro sospensioni attive sono piuttosto all'avanguardia e quindi probabilmente un'occhiata non fa mai male in questi casi di spionaggio fra virgolette di carattere industriale.
Intanto corre, vedete sul teleschermo la griglia di partenza, lo schieramento di partenza. La corsa si articola su 71 giri più uno di ricognizione di questo circuito di Interlagos di 4.325 metri, totale quindi della gara 307 km e 753. Ecco Nelson, come è cambiato rispetto al primo Interlagos, quello che avevamo conosciuto per i primi Gran Premi del Brasile, questo è il 22esimo ormai partendo dal 72, rispetto a questo nuovo tracciato?
Interlagos vecchio, in mia opinione, era la più bella pista che ho mai corso in mia vita. Questa adesso è una più brutta perché sono tutte curve alla stessa velocità che non è facile di guidare senza nessuna immaginazione. Loro veramente distrutto questo bello circuito.
E come vedevamo prima il cartello di 5 minuti, adesso il cartello dei 3 minuti e ci prepariamo a vedere questa partenza che come sempre nei Gran Premi, salvo quelli più fortunati per lo spettacolo, è il momento di maggiore emozione e a questo punto vedremo se Senna riuscirà nel colpo di fare come in Sudafrica, e cioè scavalcare Prost. Secondo te può riuscire Senna in questa partenza a infilarsi tra le due Williams?
Ma guarda, Prost ha fatto una partenza normale.
Championship standings at the moment, which actually is the top 6 from the South African Grand Prix. This morning, John, the warm-up, we've seen no real surprises, but let's just have a look at the grid. It's an all-Williams lockout on the front row. That's not the biggest surprise, I suppose. I think what might be a surprise is the gap there is between Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost.
Well, I think we think it's a surprise based on the performance of principally McLaren, but also Michael Schumacher and Benetton in South Africa. But these racetracks are an entirely different one to that in Kyalami. Here, Interlagos is essentially a power circuit, but also you do need a fair amount of downforce. Now, for everybody who doesn't have the benefit of a Williams, let's say, like Alain Prost and Damon Hill, what you have to try and do is find a way of compromising what you have in terms of top speed against the kind of downforce that you need to have a reasonable amount of grip. And that's been very difficult. And in effect, what's happened is that nobody has been able to come remotely close to Alain Prost. He was outstanding in qualifying on Saturday afternoon, just a tenth of a second slower than Mansell's blinding time of 1992. And remember, in those days, Mansell had the benefit of very, very sophisticated fuel from Elf. And of course, Mansell was fired up like we've never seen him before. Prost did the job in a much more serene fashion, I think is the word I would use. At the time, just suddenly there popped up 1 minute 15.866. And really, that's the story of the qualifying over the last 2 days. Williams-Renault, total domination.
Second row of the grid, Ayrton Senna and Michael Schumacher, and again Ayrton Senna, the fastest of the Ford HB runners. Then the third row of the grid, Michael Andretti and Riccardo Patrese. Andretti, his best qualifying performance ever, and Riccardo Patrese, I think we could say, back on form with the Benetton.
Certainly back in form in relation to his position on the grid, but in fact his time was quite a lot slower than that of teammate Michael Schumacher, in fact 1.2 seconds slower, and that's an awful lot of time between two people in identical cars. Now, it just shows you the gap between the front of the grid and that in the middle field where the majority of the 25 runners here are positioned. 1.2 seconds is a lot for anybody to find. I'm not convinced Riccardo Patrese is going to find it at any point this season.
Talking about identical cars, well, we leave for the parade lap. J.J. Later and Carl Wendlinger, a 1:19.207 and a 1:19.330 on the fourth row.
Well, just very interesting. We had a bulletin from FISA this morning which said that standing starts during any practice sessions are banned. And we saw both Williams Renault drivers doing a practice start. That's the first time they're allowed to do it legitimately. This is a new ruling brought in partly because a lot of people in South Africa We're doing it during both practice and qualifying, and here again over the 2 days of practice and qualifying. So the officials, the stewards of the meeting, have decided that that is now illegal and not permitted.
Fifth row of the grid, Jan Alesi and Mark Blundell, and they are on a 1:19.260 and 1:19.296, and it's all very close in that middle pack with Philippe Elio, Johnny Herbert, Gerhard Berger, Rubens Barrichello in 14th, Alessandro Zanardi, Martin Brundle, Eric Comas and Derek Warwick, all within a second of Riccardo Patrese.
Well, the start of this Grand Prix generally provides a fair amount of excitement, and you've got to really watch what's going on around you. It's not just a question of looking for the corner for yourself. It's a matter of being aware of who is on either side of you, but also who is behind you, because inevitably you'll see the front line charge up there. They will brake marginally earlier than they would normally do, but those people behind will still be flat out, and it's a concertina situation. There's always trouble into the Curva de Senna on the first lap of the Brazilian Grand Prix. Let's hope that everybody gets round cleanly this time. We've only got 25 cars in the race, and let's hope all 25 make it round the first lap.
On the 10th row of the grid, we found Aguri Suzuki and Christian Fittipaldi, and on the 11th row of the grid, only Okio Katayama, because Luca Badour was late away from the dummy grid, so he's got to start at the back of the grid on the very last row, together with Michele Alboreto, who is the last qualifier, right behind two Italians, Fabrizio Babazza and Andrea De Cesaris.
In fact, in many ways, Luca Badour has got the best result, because where he was on the grid on the 11th row, he is actually going to be safer starting behind his teammate Michele Alboreto. At least everything that's going to happen will happen ahead of him. He's not going to have to worry about De Cesaris, Babazza, Katayama, or his own teammate Alboreto. So for Badour in his second Grand Prix, while it's a disappointment, in reality, I think he's got quite a result.
Actually, it's what happened to Nicola Larini last year in the last two Grand Prix that he stole when he was driving for Ferrari. The scene is set for 71 race laps around the Interlagos circuit that is 2.6 miles long, and it's a total distance of 190.7 miles. We wait for the man with the green flag right at the end. You can see the gap where Luca Badour should have been and where he is not, and Luca Badour was just late away from the dummy grid.
And with the green flag shows that everything is clear at the back. The Brazilian Grand Prix is go. Prost gets away. There was a very quick start at the back, but leading into the first corner, it's Alain Prost, and Ayrton Senna goes through on the inside and takes second.
Michael Andretti went off on the, well, there you see Michael Andretti off on the outside, and that'll be a big disappointment for him. Very short Brazilian Grand Prix, as Ayrton Senna got inside Damon Hill, quite predictably. A good start by Senna, but Hill, quite rightly, taking it very cautiously after his bad opening lap in South Africa. And here we see the start again. Now there's Senna going inside, and Michael Andretti on contact there with another car. I can't quite see who that is. And two cars off.
I think it was Riccardo Patrese, but we'll soon be able to check. But anyway, those two cars got off at the start. Why, no, it wasn't Riccardo Patrese. So Alain Prost, there they go. You just saw the flash of the McLaren going off, and now it was a Ferrari, so it was most likely to have been Jean Alesi, who started 9th on the grid, making a terrific start behind Andretti. But now it's Prost leading, Senna second, Damon Hill in 3rd position. In 4th place it's Alesi, so if it was a Ferrari, it was Gerhard Berger. And there's the replay. My goodness, that's a big one. That is a very big one indeed. You saw on the replay a colossal impact, and over the line goes Prost leading, Ayrton Senna in 2nd position, and there was Martin Brundle out of the race on lap 1 in the Ligier.
I saw Schumacher making a bid to get past Alesi's Ferrari, and incidentally it was Gerhard Berger who tangled there at the start with Michael Andretti. Gerhard Berger off at the outside, and that is Martin Brundle walking away from his Ligier. We don't see how that happened.
Well, Martin Brundle does not have luck at the beginning of the season. Last year he had a bad run in the Benetton at the beginning of the season, and the same thing is happening again for Ligier. But on the second lap, in the 71-lap race, Alain Prost is already impressing his mark in Brazil. He was almost 2 seconds faster than Senna in practice, but as you can see, Senna is holding on well, considering that he's a lot of horsepower down in the McLaren.
Yes, and he was struggling to be 2 seconds slower than the Williams all through Friday and Saturday practice and qualifying. Prost, we know, takes it nice and easy at the start and builds up into his race speed, looks after his tyres, and I'm quite sure Prost is taking it very easy. But most impressive in third place is the way Damon Hill has approached the opening laps of this race. He's taken his time and he's going to play himself in gently, and that's very sensible after his dramatic start in South Africa. But Michael Andretti had a tangle in South Africa in the early laps of the race. He's had another one here. He qualified better this time, but the American certainly so far struggling to get to grips with his newly chosen career in Formula One.
So behind Ayrton Senna in third place, it's Damon Hill. Then in fourth position, it's Michael Schumacher. In fifth position is JJ Leto in the Sauber. And in sixth place, it's Riccardo Patrese. So both the Williams well up, both the Benettons well up. Just the McLaren of Ayrton Senna left out of the two that began, because already there are three major retirements. Andretti and Berger coming together very, very forcefully indeed at the start, and Martin Brundle out. But meantime, Alain Prost back in racing after a full season away last year of the Australian Grand Prix in 1991. Has got all his flair back. He had a tremendous weight over him in South Africa because he knew that on the Thursday after the race he was appearing before the World Council of the governing body of the sport, charged with disrespect, and he could have been suspended. Well, there was no problem. He was found to be very much not guilty, and now he's got a clear mind, and Damon Hill is still in third position. Michael Schumacher is making no impression on the Englishman, and this is very good news because Damon Hill will now have got over his start nerves. He's settled down well. He can see Senna in front of him, and he can see Schumacher some distance behind him, but closing a bit in the Benetton.
And there's Gerhard Berger. He's perfectly all right. We have news that Michael Andretti is also undamaged, perfectly all right. And there is Damon Hill. And certainly he's playing himself in just the right way. But now the pressure's coming because Schumacher's giving chase. And incidentally, so far, Senna is keeping closer to Alain Prost than we expected. And this is good news for the race. But I'm sure that Prost will start to gradually, as his fuel load lightens and he takes the thickest bit of the rubber off the tyres. In fact, Prost is beginning to stretch his lead already. And I would expect Damon Hill to start closing in on Ayrton Senna, but he will certainly find Senna a big problem to pass unless he can do it and get well onto this long uphill straight that they're now on. And that was a Benetton slowing towards the pits. It must have been Riccardo Patrese, because there is Michael Schumacher. So problems for Patrese, and here we're from his onboard camera. And Patrese really struggling in the Benetton team, as he did at Williams last year. He was 1.2, 1.3 seconds slower than Michael Schumacher in qualifying here. Similar margins in South Africa. And that's a long way back for a number two.
We're riding with Damon Hill. You can see his speed at kilometres an hour on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And he's keeping ahead of Michael Schumacher, the wonder new German who's only entering his second full Grand Prix season. And Damon Hill has got Ayrton Senna very much in his sights. It's Prost leading, Senna second. We're riding with the third place man, Damon Hill, who's got a considerable horsepower advantage from his V10 Renault compared with Senna in the Ford V8 powered car in front of him. Schumacher is behind in fourth position, and the Saubers are sixth and seventh.
Yes, and of course one of the problems that Hill has got on the start-finish straight is we've still got yellow flags up at the first corner, And so at the point where the Williams may just be reeling in the McLaren and ready to pass, he wouldn't be allowed to if he's in the yellow flag zone. That's where they're clearing up the accident from the first corner. Well, I can't see any yellow flags here, maybe up beyond the grid, as Prost goes over the line. Yellow flags are still beware. So we just had a glimpse of one in the corner of that picture as they're just beginning to get the accident cleared up. So another couple of laps and we should have a green flag there, because that's the main, of course, the main overtaking point on the circuit. Now Prost starting to stretch it, Senna on the limit, and the battle for second place beginning to close up. Hill and Schumacher all three of them getting close to one another. Getting on for 4.5 seconds. Prost's lead, and already they've left Jean Alesi a long way behind, and JJ Leto going well yet again in the Sauber, because he went very well in South Africa, albeit was delayed 2 laps in the pits early in the race. He was up in the top 6 early in the race, and after only a few laps he had a gearbox problem. They fixed it, and then he drove back into the points.
And Wendlinger is in 7th place behind Leto, both of them in Saubers, and in 8th position is Philippe Alliot in the very promising Larousse with the Chrysler Lamborghini engine, which, by the way, McLaren are believed to be having a look at, possibly for next season. But anyway, the question here in Brazil is Ayrton Senna going to be driving for McLaren at Donington? You can see the yellow flags are out, and in 2 weeks' time, there is the European Grand Prix at Donington as Damon Hill moves right up on Ayrton Senna. And there's the...
And that caption on your screen is actually the heart rate of the driver. They've got Ayrton Senna wired to a radio signal sending out his heart rate, and interesting to see that in the corners and then on the straight. But of course that's the heart rate just from the physical exertion is liable to be well up around 130, 140, and then of course the pressure of the corner and driving right on the limit can take it up to higher peaks. What we need to see is more interesting is to watch it all the way around a lap. But Senna starting to come under pressure now from Hill, who in turn is coming under pressure from Michael Schumacher. But it's when they get out just after this little complex and they go down to the bottom of the hill, and they've got that 3rd gear left-hander which they're coming into now, and then they got this long uphill straight, and they build up when the wind was behind them in practice to over 300 kilometers an hour.
And this is where Damon Hill, with his superior power, could close up on Ayrton Senna and start to challenge for second place. And the Englishman's going to be very, very careful indeed, because he will still have branded in his mind what happened to him in South Africa, when in the pressure of being right under Ayrton Senna's wing on the first corner, he spun out. And now Alain Prost is nearly 5 seconds ahead of this battle for the 2 Ford engine cars. That's the McLaren and the Benetton, and the Renault V10 of Damon Hill, who is inching up on Senna all the time. Still Alesi 5th, still Leto 6th.
Yes, and I think it's probably right to say that Damon Hill has never diced with Ayrton Senna before on a racetrack, but he won't have had to have done that to know that you don't mess with Ayrton Senna. He can confirm that after Schumacher's experience in South Africa. Schumacher tried to get past him, only got alongside him and got the door summarily slammed on him. So Damon is going to have to get very close to Ayrton Senna here, entering this corner that we're looking at now. He's not close enough this time in order to use the superior power of the Williams as they go on that long uphill drag up to maximum speed.
And behind them, it is still in 5th position Alesi. It is still in 6th place Leto. Wendlinger in the 2nd Sauber is still in 7th position. Philippe Alliot is still in 8th position. 9th is Johnny Herbert. And you look at Michael Schumacher there, chasing Damon Hill, chasing Ayrton Senna, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Prost, of course, has got a clear track in front of him, a clear track behind him, and the 2nd, 3rd and 4th are definitely getting closer to each other.
Yes, meanwhile, they were just, well, a very brief caption, but Prost has a fastest lap of 1:22.3 approximately, and that's a good bit slower than he went in the warm-up, and I do get the impression that Prost is pacing himself to Senna behind him and is driving with quite a bit in hand at the moment. He's only 6 seconds ahead after 8 laps, and the form yesterday, the day before, and in this morning's warm-up suggested that Prost could be pulling away at something like 1.5 seconds a lap if he so desired. There's a possibility that he might try and go through the race without stopping for tyres, although I wouldn't expect that. If I was Prost, I would think a better tactic would be to go pretty fast in the early half of the race and try and get a big enough lead before pit stop time to be able to get in and out of the pits without losing the lead if one had a good pit stop. I think that would be the safer tactic, but it may just be that Prost is trying to really nurse his tyres. Now, Hill, you see, with the power of the engine, got right up to Senna then. It's the closest he's been. Schumacher playing a watching brief, and there's nothing Schumacher will be able to do about passing Hill except hope for a mistake, because the extra power of the Williams will need a mistake in a corner by Hill for Schumacher to pounce on it. But he will try and stay close for just that eventuality. Hill is inexperienced and he's in exalted company, and he will undoubtedly be feeling the pressure, because his error in South Africa certainly will tend to put more pressure on himself not to make error. But he did start this race very conservatively and sensibly, I thought.
And they're into the complex of bends now from turn 6 up to turn 11. And Damon Hill is now getting to be in a position where he's close enough to take Ayrton Senna as they come up the hill here and into the tremendously fast left-hander, which leads into the top straight. Damon Hill going for it. Now he's in a position to try and take second place. Let's see if he does it. He's got the power advantage.
Yes, and he shouldn't have tried to get inside Senna there. He needs, and Senna going to protect the inside. And I think Senna will leave his braking very, very late. Hill can dominate the corner from there, and Hill has done it. And that was good driving, because Senna didn't give way easily. I was surprised Senna didn't go to the inside of the track all the way up the straight then to force Hill the long way round. But that is Hill likely to be gone now, and you see that Hill stuck to his guns. Senna tried to unnerve him, but Hill always had the dominant line for the corner. Now, Hill will start to get away, and Hill's stretching quite a lot already, and of course Senna is now going to come under pressure from Michael Schumacher.
Now this is good news and bad news. Good news because Damon Hill is up into second position. Bad news because Ayrton Senna will be dispirited by this. He will keep on fighting, but the Brazilian is driving for McLaren on a race-to-race basis. He hasn't signed for the rest of the season. He's known to be putting terrific pressure on the McLaren management for more money, but equally important, he's known to be putting terrific pressure on Ford to get the same series of engine that the Benetton team behind him have got, because Michael Schumacher has got a more advanced form of the Ford V8 engine than McLaren have, and if Senna can't get more power, never mind more money, there's a danger of him not driving for the rest of the season. His place might be taken by Mika Häkkinen. We've heard there's a possibility even that there'll be 3 McLarens at Donington in 2 weeks' time for the European Grand Prix. I hope that is so, because not only will it make the race more interesting in itself, but it would mean that Ayrton Senna would be driving there. But we've got to hope that Senna can stay within sight of Damon Hill, and the Englishman is driving a magnificent race, because even with the power advantage that he's got, to have taken the 3 times world champion as convincingly as he did was a very big feather in his cap.
Yes, this would have done Damon Hill's confidence an enormous power of good. The fact that he drove the opening laps so sensibly, and that he took his time, and that it wasn't as difficult as he might have thought to get past Senna when the time came. He should now be in a much more relaxed mood. That should help his speed. And meantime, he'll be able to get away from Senna, I'm quite sure, because apart from anything else, Senna has got his mirrors full of Michael Schumacher, and his main concern will be to defend third place. way up the hill. Now, interesting, because these two cars have similar engines, and there's a big argument from McLaren, who want the air valve engine. The engine in the Benetton is reputed in straight terms to have 20 more horsepower, but the straight line speeds in qualifying and practice didn't altogether suggest that. But then McLaren have different electronics, and of course they have Shell fuel as opposed to the ELF fuel in the Benetton, and they seem to be going well.
Now, while you watch Michael Schumacher challenging Ayrton Senna, what's going on in the rest of the race? We're on lap 13. Alain Prost is leading by 9 seconds. Damon Hill is in second position. There are the other four: Senna, Schumacher, Alesi and Leto in the top 6. In 7th position, it is Wendlinger. In 8th position, it is Philippe Alliot. 9th is Johnny Herbert in the Lotus. In 10th position, it's Marc Blundell in the Ligier, who of course was 3rd in South Africa. And then in 11th position is Zanardi in the 2nd Lotus, and in 12th position it's Ivan Capelli, at last running in a race in the Jordan because he was out on lap 3 in South Africa.
Yes, and Alesi there really holding up the two Saubers of Leto and Wendlinger. Surprising that they can't, that the Saubers haven't got the pace on this long power straight to get past Alesi, because, and we'll get a look at it now as they go away up the straight if we stay with it, because Leto is extremely well placed. He's attacking, because Ferrari at the moment, or just recently, have been renowned for their lack of power, rather, but Alesi all weaving all over the circuit, and Jean Alesi spectacular as ever, and he drives a very wide car indeed.
Yeah, and that was where he took Martin Brundle off last year in the Benetton, because Brundle was pushing Alesi last year as hard as Leto is now, and Leto's looking all the time. To be fair to Alesi, the Ferrari is very, very difficult to drive this year. They have active suspension when they did not have last year. It's a long way from being right. Gerhard Berger, of course, is already out of the race. He had an enormous shunt on Friday in practice and did very, very well indeed to qualify as well up as he did. But we're now on lap 14, and now Alain Prost is 9 seconds ahead of his teammate Damon Hill. As you watch the battle for 5th with Alesi in the Ferrari, you don't watch the battle for 5th, because now we're with Damon Hill crossing the line to complete his 14th lap. Prost, Senna and Schumacher.
And Prost is steadily opening out his lead over teammate Damon Hill. Just, or certainly he did when Hill immediately had got into 2nd place, just to stamp and underline who was the boss in that team. And Senna and Schumacher keeping up well with Hill. Now, we were talking about, or Murray was talking about Berger. He had this huge shunt on Friday, and in fact, he and Alesi, Prost lead, by the way, 10.2 seconds over Damon Hill, so he's taking it away at some half a second a lap. And had this huge shunt on Friday morning, destroyed his car. They're not allowed to use a spare car, and in fact, the two Ferraris, as in South Africa, have got different active suspension. We have some spots of rain, and now Leto in alongside and getting inside John Alesi. This is a replay. We didn't see it happen, but it looks as if JJ is through there, if he gets through the chicane without error. And in fact, the two Ferraris, different active suspensions. What was interesting was that there's a car parked there. I didn't see who it was, but Berger went quicker while still feeling very ill from his big shunt on Friday in Alesi's car than he was able to go on Saturday in his own car. And certainly his car was really troubling him in South Africa. And you see the clouds in the background there. There's spots of rain. This may liven up the proceedings.
Yeah, just keep it in your mind that Alain Prost is striding away at the moment to his 46th Grand Prix victory, potentially. It's a long way to go before he sees the checkered flag, but only a reliability problem with the Williams or a problem passing one of the tail-enders, I think, can interrupt Alain Prost's majestic progress now on his triumphal return to Grand Prix racing after having been out all last year. But Damon Hill in second position, and of course he's creating an enormous cushion now between Ayrton Senna and Prost. Not that Senna seems to be able to do much about catching Hill, let alone passing him. And Senna, I hope, is not going to be dispirited by what's happening in this race. He's only won once in Brazil. It's his home country, and Sao Paulo is his home city. And incidentally, Rubens Barrichello, the young Brazilian, has disappeared from our lap chart somewhere or other. The retirements so far are, of course, Gerhard Berger and Michael Andretti, who has yet to finish a Grand Prix. In fact, he has yet to do one lap in the Brazilian Grand Prix. He's very much out of it. Martin Brundle is out, Patrese is out, Barbaza is out.
Now you see the rain on the lens of Prost's camera. That's his velocity, not his heart rate, unlike the caption we had with Ayrton Senna a little while ago. But that shows us that it is spotting with rain as Prost starts to lap the back markers. Incidentally, Riccardo Patrese, we just heard, his retirement was caused by a split oil cooler that is for the active suspension. So that blew all its oil out and his active suspension collapsed.
And it's Akio Katayama in the Tyrrell Yamaha, who is headed by Michele Alboreto in the Lola Ferrari. That Michael Schumacher is coming up to lap on this, the 17th lap.
When I say collapsed, I mean the function of it collapsed. I'm quite sure it's got a fail-safe device that would stop it actually collapsing onto the deck and being dangerous.
Meantime, Ayrton Senna comes up and takes Eric Comas in the LaRousse Lamborghini. And that must be Barrichello's car. I noticed he's out of the lap charts, and it was a Jordan that was stuck there. So Rubens Barrichello, the 20-year-old Brazilian who impressed so much in practice, and his first Brazilian Grand Prix. Well, there he is. There's the proof. That's Barrichello walking in. A very disconsolate Brazilian, because he had a chance of doing very well indeed here in his own race, having started well up on the grid, because Barrichello was in 14th place out of the 25 starters. 25, incidentally. It's a rather complicated reason. I'll keep it as brief as I can. The rule now is that 2 less will start than entered. Well, 26 entered with the withdrawal of the March team. But it meant if they knocked 2 out and only had 24 starters, one of the teams would not have any car in the race. So they very sensibly, in my opinion, decided there would be 25 starters, which enabled all the teams to have at least 1 car in the race. And now you see Alain Prost, a comfortable 10 seconds ahead of Damon Hill. And then there's 3 seconds between Hill, there he is, and Senna. You can see the gap between Senna, 3rd, and in 4th place Michael Schumacher, as Barrichello's car is parked, and it is parked on the exit of turn 13, as Derek Warwick is passed by Christian Fittipaldi. Christian Fittipaldi in the Minardi Ford, and Derek Warwick, of course, in the footwork with the Mugen engine. And Fittipaldi is in 13th place, well, he's now in 12th position, as they drop downhill and now start to climb, because one of the great things, as Barrichello's car is towed away from a position of danger on the course, one of the great things about this superb Interlagos circuit is that it has plenty of gradient. There are climbs and drops, as well as all the corners that you can see, and the drivers love this circuit.
And with lapping the back markers and a few spots of rain, Alain Prost, using his lead wisely, has decided to forego a bit, and the gap now to Damon Hill is down to 7 odd seconds. But of course, Damon is about to encounter the traffic as well, as are Senna and Schumacher, and to Senna and Schumacher, this will probably be good news. They'll feel that they've got, I'm sure, more chance of slicing through the traffic more quickly than the inexperienced Damon Hill. And of course, every extra horsepower helps when in amongst the back markers, and Damon Hill has certainly got the edge on those two that we're now looking at for horsepower. And we're expecting tyre stops from lap 25 or so. Most of the teams expecting to stop once. Now the gap back to 8.3 seconds. Cross leads by 8.3 from Damon Hill.
And there goes Hill, and the tyre stops, of course, in South Africa changed the position between second and third, because if you remember, Michael Schumacher came into the pits just ahead of Ayrton Senna, Schumacher in second place. The McLaren team got Senna out faster than the Benetton team got Schumacher, as a result of which Ayrton Senna regained the second position he had lost to Michael Schumacher. The same thing could happen here, because it's very close indeed, except that the battle is for third position, as the McLaren and the Benetton, respectively, both with Ford V8 engines, close up on Michele Alboretto's Lola Ferrari. That's the Scuderia Italia team, which last year used a Dallara chassis. And Alain Prost is very secure at the present moment. He can afford to have a very leisurely pit stop. And we all recall the problems that Nigel Mansell had in the past with pit stops that went wrong, notably that one in Portugal where the wheel came off, and that's the last thing that Williams will want to happen to their superstar, 3 times world champion Alain Prost, who looks as though he's on his way to his 46th Grand Prix victory, as JJ Leto, who is now in 5th position behind Michael Schumacher, comes up, and Schumacher takes Alboretto and looks across at the Italian. Doesn't look very pleased with him for some reason.
Yes, and Leto in 5th place, and still Wendlinger still struggling to get past Jean Alesi in the extra wide Ferrari. As we look at Ayrton Senna. Lost a little bit of ground in the traffic, but that won't bother him unduly. He's shown that he can get right back to Senna, but he's also appeared to be relatively little threat as far as overtaking is concerned. Of course, the corner was Prost going through, still amongst the traffic, lapping Derek Warwick there. Warwick waving away. Sorry, Aguri Suzuki that was, in the footwork.
Suzuki, the Japanese driver, and now here is race leader Alain Prost, carrying number 2. I've told you before, but I'll tell you again, that Alain Prost is number 2 because there is no number 1 in this race, or any race this year in the World Championship Series, because it is traditionally carried by the world champion, who of course is racing in Indy racing this year. That's the McLaren team, who are obvious now. Are they? It looked to me, I only had a quick look at the tyres, but it looked to me as though they were getting a set of Goodyear wets ready with their asymmetric tread, and that could be very significant indeed for Ayrton Senna.
And the world champion, incidentally, for I'm sure you all know, did an extremely good job for Grand Prix racing last weekend by dominating his first kart race and showing real class. In the meantime, their top man, Michael Andretti, over here, still struggling to get to grips with Formula One, but we give him more time because he certainly made a better showing in qualifying here into Lagos than he had done in South Africa, and there was an improvement there, but he comes with a reputation of being a tremendous charger and racer from America, but so far he's charged twice and charged into contact and off the road, and that is a worry for the future. Schumacher closer to Senna. Now let's hope our producer stays with this shot all the way round, because this is as close as Schumacher has been, and of course it's the corner onto the straight that matters. They're on the infield now, getting into the slow stuff. The twisty ones, and a back marker in front of Senna will please Schumacher. The man in front is always the man with the biggest problem when you come upon the traffic, because he's the only one with something to lose, i.e. the lead, and Schumacher is extremely well placed. Now it's here that Schumacher has got to be absolutely on top, but he won't be so pleased because Senna is going to get the toe on the straight. He would have liked to have caught that back marker before they got onto the straight, because Senna will also have a hole in the air now to follow. Will not quite be close enough to make the pass.
De Cesaris in the Tyrrell Yamaha is the man they are both lapping, and of course this is a very trying time for Michael Schumacher. Remember, he learned a lesson from Ayrton Senna in Brazil. He was challenging in a faster Benetton Ayrton Senna in South Africa for lap after lap, because Senna had a suspension derangement which was slowing up the car, and in the end Schumacher tried to dive through on the inside. Senna held his line, they made contact. You can hardly call it a collision, it was just contact, but anyway Schumacher spun out of the race. So he knows, everybody knows, but Schumacher knows from personal experience that Senna is not going to yield under any circumstances, and therefore Michael Schumacher has got to think about where he can get past the 3 times world champion in front of him, Ayrton Senna. There he is, Senna on the right, Schumacher on the left. They're at the slowest corner of the circuit now, the second gear hairpin. Now they come round the right-hander at the Pagello up to turn 11. And now completing the lap, they climb from here onwards. This is where Senna nearly went off in practice, up into the top straight, and they get up to about 185 miles an hour here.
That's about as close as Schumacher's going to be able to get in the corner onto the straight. Senna going for the inside. Now, will he stay there? Senna going for tires. Senna into the pits. He's peeled off. And I was just saying, it's difficult for Schumacher to get any closer than that on that corner, because it's very much a wing corner, and the disturbance of the air caused by the car in front will always be a problem.
Well, I wouldn't mind looking at this tyre stop. Oh, I suppose the camera's in the way, but why say it? It's a stop-go penalty. Well, I don't know. Well, for some reason, and I can't tell you what it is, Ayrton Senna has been penalised. He's been shown the black flag. He's been told to come in for a mandatory 10-second stop. And meantime, of course, he's really up against it now, because Schumacher has gone through up into 3rd position behind Damon Hill in 2nd place. Alain Prost, the race leader, and Leto is also up. Leto is in 4th position, and Lacey is 5th, and Ayrton Senna is well down the field. And it's beginning to rain. It's all happening.
It certainly is, because I didn't see Senna commit any what I'd call stop-go offence on the track. He wasn't weaving excessively, in my opinion. And the other thing that surprised me, and although I must confess it's a new rule and I'm not clear as to what he should have done, but I'm very surprised that he didn't take on tyres by stopping first of all at his own pit, changing tyres, then stopping at the control tyre for 10 seconds, because that still would have been less acceleration and deceleration time than making the having to make a tyre stop subsequently. And I would have thought the clever trick then, because we're just about at tyre change time, that Senna should have stopped at his own pit first, then gone for his 10 seconds stop, and that way he would have it would have been more economical in the overall scheme of things. Interesting. Now, you heard the traction control then working on Prost's car as he came out of the corner. That apparent misfire, remember, that is the engine cutting one of the cylinders to reduce the power, and of course this is the computer doing the job for the driver, and something that is a matter of some regret to everybody in Formula One now, in that see, they have at last realised. You see the oil flag there, that is to point out, and they're starting to pick up spray. You can see the spray now of Prost tyres, and the track is getting wet. So now I wouldn't be at all surprised if this rain is covering all of the circuit. We're trying to look out of the back of the circuit to see if it's raining down the back, but it looked worse here on the start-finish line.
Well, meantime, I can tell you that Ayrton Senna is in 4th position. Prost is leading, and you're watching him now on lap 27 by 10 seconds. 2nd is Damon Hill. 3rd is the man you are looking at, Michael Schumacher, and he is some 25 seconds ahead of Ayrton Senna, who is in 4th place. 5th is JJ Leto, and down to 6th position in the Ferrari is Jean Alesi. 7th is Carl Wendlinger, and in 8th position is Philippe Alliot. But I think we're going to have some real excitement and possible changes soon, because drivers will have to come in and change their slick tyres with no tread on them to wet tyres.
Yeah, but I've just been checking the rule on stop-go, and the reason Senna didn't stop the tyres, which was the logical thing to do, is you are not, under the new rules, allowed to stop for anything else. You can only come in and do your stop-go and not have a 5,000-mile service while you're about it.
It's very interesting, James, that the one race that Ayrton Senna does not seem to do well at is Brazil. The year he won, if you remember, he finished in a state of absolute exhaustion, slumped in the cockpit of the car, and incidentally, it was slopping wet then too. He just got home to win the race, but time after time in Brazil, Ayrton Senna has gone down for some reason or another, whereas time after time, Alain Prost has won. Alain Prost, of course, has been in Grand Prix racing now for some 13 years, including the one he didn't actually drive last year. He's won 6 times in Brazil, but he's also had a lot of 2nds and 3rds. Brazil is for Prost, but Brazil does not seem to be for Senna.
Yes, it works like that, I think, Murray, for all drivers. They have, and it's nothing to do with the way they drive. Sometimes you're lucky and the rain is really coming down and Senna is still charging on, and it's wet, much wetter here than around the rest of the circuit, and that, of course, is why people, but Senna is coming in now. Is he going to put on wets, or is he going to put on more slicks? Because whilst there is cloud about and wet tyres for Ayrton Senna, he's still got the labels on. Brand spanking new. Look at that. Still with the labels on.
6.9 seconds now. Senna's got an advantage. The others will have to come in, notably Alain Prost. Remember, in South Africa, Alain Prost very sensibly came in immediately after Senna to change tyres. That's the best time to do it, so that you don't lose any time to the man who has changed to a better tyre for the circumstances. And there is the race leader, Alain Prost, on his 29th lap. Surely he must come in at the end of this one to change onto wet tyres.
Well, he stayed out, and I think that Senna has gone for a bit of a gamble here, because Damon Hill's come in. So Damon is in for tyres, he's on to wets, and that's a sensible thing to do, because these things are pretty nasty to drive on slick tyres when you're, or certainly to race on slick tyres. Traction control working with the misfire as Damon goes away, but that's a deliberate misfire. And we were all agreed in this business that getting the car pointed straight out of a corner and then just being able to floor the throttle and have a computer decide how much power goes out is very bad for Grand Prix racing, and happily that amongst other driver aids, computerized driver aids, are going to be banned next year. The rules are still being debated, and I think it's healthy that they are being debated properly as to whether active suspension, for example, goes, and Suzuki in the middle of the road in a terrible mess.
Indeed he is, and that makes the 7th retirement. It's the safety car. SC means safety car, which means pace car. Now you can see this is mayhem here. They should have come in quicker to change for tyres. Suzuki is blocking the course. That means they're going to have the pace car out. It's going to be a desperately difficult race to follow from now on. And first of all, they've got to get the footwork Mugen off the circuit and clear the debris. And we will try and... I'm just trying to identify who that is. It looks like Eric Comas running across the track to me. Eric Comas from the LaRousse team, and it was Katayama. So the Tyrrell is out. And there is Prost. Prost has gone off. Well, this is quite amazing.
And he's knocked his nose off, and I tell you what, Senna may have just done the clever thing here. He took a gamble. He came in what was probably a bit early. It's a big storm now over the circuit, but with the safety car out, Senna will be able to stay on, and now the rules and people sliding all over the place. Here, the track absolutely awash, and the cars literally float on these tires, and that's going to be a bang. That was the Prost incident. That was a replay of Alain Prost going and hitting a Lacey. And there is a safety car. Now, the safety car has to pick up the leader, but does the safety car know who the leader is? That is Johnny Herbert, I think. Or...
I'll tell you who the leader is. It's Damon Hill. Damon Hill, and not only is the leader, but he's out on wet tyres. And that must be Michael Schumacher, because we already know, of course, that Riccardo Patrese is out of the race.
And that was certainly more than the tyre change that Michael Schumacher was having. The whole team had descended on his car. And that looked like a Lazy still going, so he got going again. And it was a Minardi, we understand, that... and there's Senna skating around, and Senna off the track, but trying to pick up the pace car, but he's got back on the track and may have just nerfed his under tray a bit, but he's in a lot better shape than a lot of the cars. Now the safety car, they have the safety car picks up the leader, and the leader has to stay behind the safety car. Before that, other cars are waved through, and they form up behind the safety car. Now, anybody who goes into the pits for tyres, if the safety car is on the pit straight, they are held by the red light when they want to leave the pits until the whole field that are in a queue behind the safety car has gone past. And this is the controversial bit about the new rule, because in America, where the safety car rules work very well, and we don't understand why we haven't copied the American rules, other than the fact that egos seem to suggest that they don't want to do it. This is Senna.
Yes, there was actually in America they did not stop the clock. The original safety ruling was the clock was stopped, but whatever, Ayrton Senna is keeping going, and the race has not, as I can see it, been stopped at the present moment. But look at the people who appear to be... Suzuki's out, Katayama's out, Prost is out, Barrichello, Barbazza, Patrese, Brundle, Andretti and Berger. There's hardly any cars left, and they've got to clear that debris. That is the Suzuki footwork car.
Are you saying they've changed the rules since South Africa then, Mario? Because in South Africa the problem was the initial. There's Senna's heart rate. The time keeps going, but that, of course it does. That was in South Africa, but the problem, the controversial bit that isn't the same as America, is that there's a red light at the end of the pit road when people want to come out. So if they come in to change tyres or to have any sort of a service, which is the trick in America that makes it exciting, they can't get out again if the safety car is going past. Whereas in America, they can blast out of the pits and then they can join the queue. And that is a fundamental and most important difference.
Well, now look at this. This is tremendously exciting, because you see the safety car followed by Damon Hill, and then behind him, 2 cars behind him, is Ayrton Senna. And when the race does restart, Damon Hill is going to have an even greater weight of responsibility on his shoulders than he had before, because instead of having a comfortable lead over Ayrton Senna, they're both on rain tyres, incidentally. Instead of having a comfortable lead over Ayrton Senna, he's going to have the experienced, tough, not to say ruthless Brazilian right under his rear wing. You see, there is Senna, there is Hill on the right, and that is the Suzuki Footwork Mugen car, which is now being removed by the Brazilian marshals off this soaking wet track. And look at all the debris there too.
Much the same as we saw Alain Prost.
Hill has, of course, been lapped. Ayrton Senna, behind Derek Warwick, has not been lapped. Indeed, he's only a few yards behind the race leader. In 4th position, it's Johnny Herbert. Down to 5th position has gone JJ Leto in the Sauber. 6th is Jean Alesi. In 7th position is Zanardi in the 2nd Lotus. And in 7th position is Philippe Alliot in the Larousse.
Well, it does appear that Frank Williams is having a good time anyway, so he's getting a bit of a kick out of this. 125 for sitting completely still. So Frank's getting his jollies now.
Well, now, James, look, let's have a little think. Do you think that Damon Hill has got what it takes to keep ahead, notwithstanding the fact he's got more power, which he won't be able to use, of course, in these wet circumstances? Keep ahead knowing that Senna is breathing behind his rear wing, challenging for the lead in his own Brazilian Grand Prix, Ayrton Senna.
Well, I think Damon Hill has got a lot of what it takes, but remember, the problem for Damon is he's never been in this situation before, and it's the unknown. But I hope that he'll remember what he should do, and what he should do in this is drive his own race. So, because the Williams is just as superior in the wet as in the dry, and but the point is he shouldn't worry about the pressure. He's got to finish this race. It's important for his confidence, and if Senna and Schumacher come flying past him, he has really got to hold on to himself and say it doesn't matter, because the track's going to dry out, the rain has eased, it's likely that this storm is going to pass, and there's plenty of time left in the race. So Damon has got to forget the others and let them drive his own race and let them get on with theirs, and if they go past him, he's got to take the attitude, well, so be it.
All these laps count. We're on lap 32 now out of 71. The race is slowed down. It's not stopped. It's still running, although they are having to maintain station, with Damon Hill leading, Ayrton Senna in second place. In third position is Schumacher, so it's 3 different makes of car. 4, because in fourth place is Johnny Herbert. There is Ron Dennis of McLaren on the left.
Yes, and having said all that about Damon Hill, of course, it's a lot easier for me to sit here in a nice dry Coventry box and say it than it is for Damon to do it, and the track looks quite dry there. So around that side of the circuit, the storm has missed, and it has certainly stopped raining on the start-finish straight as well, onto which the cars are just going. And if that's the whole field, we've got a very, very depleted field too, from all those shunts. 15 cars still running at the moment, and Damon Hill has got to convince himself, and he's got the time to think about it now, which is important. It's if he suddenly got into a wet situation with the mess is being cleared. I don't know whether they're going to try and get those cars right off the circuit, because they're in dangerous positions there if anything else happens on the straight. An idea the course car on the right should be able to hopefully drag that wreck up and away to the end of the pits, but the one over on the left, as we look at it, is a worry. The marshals are going to try and move it though, but Damon Hill at least can prepare himself for the restart, and he's got to remember, he's been told this before the race, I know he has, that the one thing he's got to do is just drive his own race and not worry about what the others did. He knows that because in South Africa he was more pressured by what was going on around him. And there's Frank Williams' heartbeat. It's come down a bit now, 110, and that shows the pressure that gets on, and he's worrying for Damon Hill. Prost out of the race.
Now, the cars with traction control are going to benefit when the pace car pulls in. And when will the pace car pull in? You will know when the pace car's lights go out. It means he's pulling into the pit lane, with Damon Hill in the lead, and he is now on his 33rd lap out of 71, with Ayrton Senna behind him in second place. Now, I was saying the cars that have got traction control are going to benefit. Look at that rain cloud over Sao Paulo. What is traction control? Well, it is an electronic arrangement where as soon as the rear wheels start to spin, the power from the engine to the gearbox is reduced until the wheels stop spinning. And that means to say that it takes a lot of the skill that the driver would normally apply to driving the car away from him and gives it to a computerized system, which is bad news, and that's one of the reasons it's being stopped next year. There are 15 cars still running out of the 26 that started. They are on lap 33. This is the first time that the pace car has really been out in a Grand Prix, and thus far it seems to be working well, because instead of having the race stop and everybody reform, and it's very difficult to know what's going on, at least we've got some excitement and interest, which is going to heighten when they start going again.
Yes, and the reason I think that we had such a dramatic sequence of events when the rain came down then was the worst possible scenario in that storm only hit half of the circuit. So that was, for example, why Prost stayed out on dry tyres, because only really the main start-finish straight was properly wet, and wet tyres don't work well on the dry, and vice versa, and that problem still exists because it's wet. Whilst it's wet here, we've seen that most of the rest of the track is dry, and not only is it a problem, at least the drivers know, but when to change tyres is going to be a critical decision, and B, a jolly difficult one.
I wonder if Derek Warwick is going to be the white man when the safety car goes in and move over and let Senna and Schumacher, who are immediately behind him in second and third places, immediately go by and attempt to catch and pass Damon Hill. That's going to be interesting to see. Knowing Derek Warwick, I've every belief that he will be the white man.
Also, the restart is going to be interesting from the point of view that it's a rolling start, and none of these drivers are used to rolling starts, and there's no precedent in Formula One about who goes when and how. In America, they're all used to it, and they know that when the pace car signals that he's going to go off, out of the last corner, basically, they start racing, and they boot it. Remember, there's quite a long run from the last corner to the entrance to the pit road, which is where the pace car will pull off, the safety car I should call him, and unless Damon Hill drops back an awful lot, they may get a false start if he goes flying past the safety car too soon, because of course if he gives it full boot out of the last corner, he's going to be well ahead of it long before it gets to the pit entrance, or alternatively if Schumacher does. So we're entering a world of the seriously unknown here.
Yes, well, let's try and identify them. There is Comas, followed by the Ferrari of Jean Alesi. That is Michele Alboreto. There is Mark Blundell with Martin Brundle in the second Ligier out of the race. We're riding now with Ayrton Senna. In front of him, you saw Derek Warwick's footwork Mugen. They are on lap 34. There are 15 cars left. And unless I am very much mistaken, they are about to restart the race. Let's watch the safety car as it comes through, because they're completing their 34th lap now. And that does not look good to me. The helicopter, the Emergencia helicopter, that's the medical helicopter. And it's obviously... You can see the stretcher there. It's obviously taking somebody away, but who that somebody is, I do not know. We saw Katayama sprinting across the track. Andrea de Cesaris in the second Tyrrell is still running, and the safety car SC is still out. So you can see for yourself, without me telling you, that the clouds overhead are still very heavy. I think it's probably Fabrizio Barbazza who's being helicoptered away.
Now, whether the start-finish line marshal with the two yellow flags then was just stopping waving because everybody had gone past and there was nobody to wave to, or whether he stopped waving as we just lost that shot because, well, the lights are still on the safety car. And the crowd are getting very excited because certainly this restart is going to be... nothing if not interesting, only if for no better reason that we haven't seen one before, and as I've just said, none of these drivers have been in one before.
I'll tell you something, James. I mean, I've been watching the monitor and the cars on the track, but I think there's still a few cars out there on slick tyres, because I haven't seen all that many come charging in. We know Senna's on wets. We know Damon Hill's on wets. We know Schumacher is on wets. He had quite a long pit stop. There's Derek Warwick, Senna, Schumacher. That is Michele Alboreto in the Lola Ferrari, and the pace car still goes out. Now, it gives us a chance to identify some of the corners on the track while we're talking to you. They're out of the Mergulo, and off goes the helicopter. We'll try and find out. Oh, it's Andretti they're taking away. Oh, well, it was... I'm sorry to see and hear that, but it was an enormous thump that Michael Andretti had at the beginning of the race when he was collected by Gerhard Berger's Ferrari. but he walked into the pit, so maybe it's just delayed shock. Let's hope it's nothing worse than that.
Yes, let's hope it's precautionary. He certainly came back on his own 2 feet. Now, I'm wondering whether Michael Schumacher, and we're trying to find out, is actually on the same lap as Ayrton Senna, because we saw Schumacher having quite a long stop, but it was once the safety car was out. Now, certainly you'd think that if he went in then, he at least would be at the back of the queue, and the safety car, well, they're getting a crane to this one. They want to get this car off the circuit. It was obviously too wrecked to be dragged, but it'll be an interesting point to see whether chap Marshall sitting on the car just trying to balance it. That's the weight of the engines, particularly with the that big lump of Honda V10 in the back. Is rather behind the central of gravity, rather behind the roll bar. Sorry, a Mugen, I beg its pardon. An ex-Honda. I don't suppose it lost any weight in the transfer, though.
I think it did, actually. I know the Mugen people have done an enormous lightning job on the V10 over the winter, but irrespective of that, it started off life as a Honda, and although it's got some lighter metals in it now, it's still a pretty hefty lump compared, for instance, with the V10 Renault. And you're looking down the pit lane from the travelling camera that the Brazilians have got, which replicates the one that we have at the British Grand Prix at Silverstone.
Yes, I do beg their pardon. I do actually know that they have done a lot of work on the engine and a lot of development, both to making it lighter and also on the power side.
There's an interesting point now. This race, if I remember correctly, last year ran about 1 hour 36 minutes, something like that. And now, with the pace car out, there's a possible situation where the race would run more than 2 hours if it was to do the full 71 laps. Now, the ruling says it's been running 1 hour so far, and we're just about halfway through it, so it's going to be nip and tuck. But if the 71 laps cannot be completed in 2 hours, then the time ruling takes over, and the race lasts 2 hours, and the checkered flag comes out at the end of those 2 hours, irrespective of how many laps they've covered. So we're having to know our rules in this race, and the safety car being out for the first time is taxing quite a lot of us. Here it is.
Yeah, the problem is I'm not sure that we do know them. It is quite difficult, and but having said that, there are a lot of people down in the pit road who are pretty unsure. Now, the pace car still got his lights going, so I would strongly suspect that this is going to be the last lap with the safety car, because the safety car has stayed out. His lights are going, but the yellow flags are stationary now on the start-finish line. Now, he's turned his lights off. His lights are off. Now, he should do another complete lap and then peel off into the pit road. Held yellow flag. Now, I was speculating that Schumacher, and the yellow flag at the start-finish line and the safety car sign has been taken in. I was speculating that Schumacher, if he's on the same lap as Senna, it would surprise me how he got there, because after that long pit stop, you're not allowed to overtake the traffic when you go out, and I can't quite understand how he got out onto the circuit after that long stop during the safety car in that position.
Well, it looks now as though the safety car is going to come in at the end of this lap, which would be lap 37, and if that is the case, it would have been out for 8 laps, and we're going to have... The safety car is speeding up as much as it can, but of course the speed that the safety car can go is nothing compared with the Formula One Grand Prix contestants behind it. And now Damon Hill, I can imagine him, if the safety car is coming in as they go into the complex of corners here. This is turn 7, which leads into the sweeping left-hander, turn 8, up to the hairpin now at turn 9, the Bico do Pato. It's a second gear, 55-mile-an-hour corner at racing speeds, and the green flag is out. Now that means to say, as they go into the hairpin, after which they have the Mergulo, and turn 11, turn 12, climbing the hill, to turn 13, the uphill one, which leads into the top straight, and Damon Hill now has got all the pressure on him because the safety car will certainly be peeling in. Now is Derek Warwick going to move over and let Senna and Schumacher through? The safety car is giving it lots of welly now. The course is fairly dry here, and Warwick closes up on Hill. And is Senna going to close up on Warwick to try and get past the Mugen as quickly as he possibly can? Now it's critical. Don't forget that Derek Warwick is well behind, and into the pits comes the safety car. The Brazilian Grand Prix restarts on lap 38, and it's all one race. And Damon Hill sprints away over the line into the 38th lap. In this 71-lap race, the course is wet. Hill is on wet. Senna is right up behind him. He's got ahead of Warwick. And now Schumacher is trying to get past the Englishman. And this is the supreme test for Englishman Damon Hill as Johnny Herbert goes into the pits and Michael Schumacher gets past Derek Warwick. So the first three in respectively Williams, McLaren and Benetton cars are, I was going to say, all together, but Derek Warwick shuts the door on Michael Schumacher, who therefore is losing time and distance, but now gets past the footwork Mugen and sets about catching the Ford V8 powered McLaren of Ayrton Senna. Well, the excitement is well and truly with us again now. There's 15 cars left out of the 26 who started. Michael Andretti has been helicoptered away to hospital, but he walked to the pit after he had crashed, so we hope it's nothing less more than delayed shock. But Alain Prost is out of the race, and so he is not going to get his 10 points. The Frenchman, 3 times world champion, went out of the race on the wet, knocked the nose cone off his Williams, and so now it's a battle between the inexperienced Damon Hill. This is only his 4th Grand Prix, and Ayrton Senna, the 3 times world champion, who is driving in his 144th Grand Prix. And I must say that if I had to put money on it, I would put it on Ayrton Senna, because Damon Hill, sensible and mature as he is as an individual, is very inexperienced in Grand Prix terms in comparison with Senna behind him. This is only Damon Hill's 4th Grand Prix, and 2 of them were in the Brabham last year, which was not the best of cars.
No, but I fancy Damon Hill to hold this together. He's got a little bit of air, he's got the speed of the car, he's seen what he can do in the dry, and he's pulling away nicely from Senna on the drier parts of the circuit. And remember, the Williams showed us last year that it has just as much, if not more, superiority on a wet track over the others to the superiority it enjoys in the dry. We saw that in the Spanish Grand Prix last year in Barcelona, and at other times. Senna may well charge in the wet, but he's not going to be able to get close enough, and the circuit, of course, is going to dry pretty quickly, although storm clouds are still around. Yeah, the traction control there on Hill's car as he powers away, controlling the wheel spin, and they do that by cutting out 1 or more cylinders on the engine to cut the power. And Schumacher in 3rd place. And I'm sure there will be discussion after the race as to how Schumacher, for example, got into that position behind the pace car, because he had a long pit stop, and unless everybody else pitted, we didn't see actually how he got there, but unless everybody else pitted and they all joined the queue, because you're not allowed to overtake in order to get back into your race position if you've pitted. You have to join the queue where you find yourself.
Ha rosicchiato altro secondo e mezzo praticamente a Senna, con Schumacher che ha guadagnato 1/10 nei confronti.
The crucial thing for Damon Hill now will be thinking about when he can come into the pits and time his pit stop. The good news for him at the moment is that those wet tyres are still fairly new and will not be suffering too much damage to the tyres yet, and they'll work reasonably well on the dry track for a few laps. On board camera in Hill's car. onto the main straight. Uphill. You can see now this is where the track's really wet, so he didn't pit this time. That's the pit entrance we've just passed. And now he'll be come to the brakes. Down to second gear for the chicane.
Damon Hill on wet tyres, and Senna into the pits. Now, why is this? Senna has gone onto wet tyres and he's decided it's good enough for dries. Well, now this is an incredible tactical battle. Schumacher is into the pits as well. Now Damon Hill will have to come in. That's Schumacher on the left there. So the second place man has changed from wets to dries. Schumacher has changed from wets to dries. JJ Leto is doing the same thing in the Sauber.
Yes, this is going to be a decision that's very difficult for Damon Hill. Now, I wonder if the Williams team will take the cue from the more experienced drivers and say, let's decide for him and we'll call Damon in anyway, because this may be crucial. If Damon can't get out, if he stays out even one lap too long on the wrong tyres, it may be that Senna gets in front of him and Schumacher, and that could be a very tall order for him to get back into the lead of this Grand Prix past the pair of them, despite the superiority of the Williams. Because if Senna's in the lead with 10 laps to go or less, he is going to make life very difficult. He's not going to give that lead away very easily at all. Now, he's coming around to complete the lap. Let's see if the Williams pit are calling him in. As I say, it's a difficult decision for one so inexperienced to make himself. He's heading, looks like he's heading for the pits, yes, and he's got... Yes, he's coming in. Damon Hill into the pits, so I suspect that they've called him in, and the question is, can Senna really motor on? Crucial pit stop for Damon Hill. It's a good one, it's a good one, and he's got away pretty well from the stop too. And Senna coming up the straight now with Schumacher.
This is going to be fantastic because Damon Hill is rejoining the circuit. There you see him as Damon Hill exits the pit lane. He is ahead of Ayrton Senna and Michael Schumacher. And all three of them have changed from dries to wets and back again to dries. Now look at this. And Senna, of course, is on tyres that are slightly warmer than those of Damon Hill. And he's really pushing the Englishman now. And we're on lap 43. Schumacher has had a stop-go for some reason, and Senna is challenging for the lead, and Senna leads. Oh, Senna uses all his superior experience and takes the lead in the Brazilian Grand Prix from Damon Hill.
And that was inevitable, really. Damon had to feel his way into the tyres. Damon has done the right thing, quite honestly. Rather than fight Senna, Senna already had a lap and a half's experience in the conditions, and that was good driving by Damon, because he can now tail Senna, and he can get this lead back. And he's done absolutely the right thing. If he'd fought him, he could easily have gone off the road. Now, Schumacher in for a stop-go, and that's put Schumacher out of contention. So the Brazilian Grand Prix now comes down to a straight fight between Senna and Damon Hill.
And Jean Alesi is in third position. So, as you look at Schumacher, who is fighting back now and is behind the Larousse Lamborghini, I can't see it must be Philippe Alliot, because we know that Eric Comas retired from the race. No, it is Comas, he's rejoined. So Schumacher has got to get past the Larousse, and the race order now on lap 43 out of 71 is Damon Hill leading. Sorry, Ayrton Senna leading, Damon Hill in second position. Jean Alesi has gone into the pits now, and you can see that Ayrton Senna, with a 1 second lead when the computer punched up the figures, is easing away now from Damon Hill in second place. And Hill has got to start to challenge soon and use that power of the Renault V10 engine.
Yes, but first, Damon needs to play himself in. There's no hurry. He's got some 17, 18 laps to go in this race. And he's got, it doesn't matter if he waits for the track to dry, he can afford to do that. Let Senna take the risks on while it's slippery and puddly. Let Damon find his own way around, because he's got a big car advantage. He was able to pass Senna relatively easily with earlier in the race, but of course if it gets down to the last half dozen laps, Senna is going to make it very, very difficult. But I really think Damon's right tactic is to take at least 3 or 4 laps of not hurrying, no need to rush. The sun's out, it's going to dry the circuit, wait till the circuit's dry, and then go.
And I'll tell you, some very happy men must be the organisers of the European Grand Prix at Donington in 2 weeks' time, because the fact that Senna is now leading his own Grand Prix and could well win it, although there is some way to go, means that he's all the more likely to drive in the European Grand Prix at Donington, and that would mean an enormous amount to Formula One fans to know that Senna was up against Prost. Johnny Herbert is in third position, and Damon Hill is certainly not losing anything to Ayrton Senna. As James said, it looks as though he's playing himself in very intelligently and biding his time.
2.2 seconds was Senna's lead as they crossed the line, and you can see how charged up the triple world champion is on the wet. He was hurling it through that chicane at the top of the circuit after the start-finish line, and he is going through those wet patches as if they don't exist. And there's no need for Damon to try and match that. He's got the superior car by a good 1.5 seconds a lap. He's got a lot more power, and if he can get onto that start-finish straight any time in the last 10 laps within 3 lengths of Senna's gearbox, and he's closer this time, he is closer, then he should be able to power past Senna up into turn 1 as they cross the line. Senna, of course, will always go for the inside as the race draws towards a close, but at the moment Damon Hill looks to be the marginal favourite to win this race, even with the disadvantage of his lack of experience.
And on lap 45, it is Ayrton Senna leading Damon Hill by the margin that you can see. In third position in the Lotus Ford is Johnny Herbert, as Hill closes on Ayrton Senna. In fourth position, it is JJ Leto, and in fifth position, it is Jean Alesi. In sixth position behind Alesi, it's Mark Blundell, the man who finished third in South Africa in the resurgent Ligier Renault. He's in the points in Brazil. Behind Mark Blundell is Alessandro Zanardi, but this is the interest and excitement. The inexperienced but cool Damon Hill, son of the great double world champion Graham Hill, and he's got Ayrton Senna in his sights. Not only has he got Ayrton Senna in his sights, but he can afford to sit behind the Brazilian, study points, see where Senna takes the line, see where Senna eases off, sees where Senna breaks, and then, hopefully from the point of view of British fans, use the superior power of his Renault V10 engine to punch his way past Ayrton Senna in the McLaren Ford. Watch this.
The good news for Damon Hill is that the last couple of corners onto the main straight are just about dry now, so he can afford to attack there without taking any undue risks, and he's closing right up on Senna. The gap now under a second, 0.9 of a second, and as Murray rightly says, we can see the gap. We don't really need a stopwatch anymore, because Damon Hill is using his car advantage. He's caught Senna, now he's just about caught him. His job now is to work out how he's going to get past him, and that involves working out how he's going to get right on his tail on that third gear corner onto the main straight. They're going through the twisty infield complex now. Jean Alesi has gone into the pits again, and Mark Blundell up to fifth. Johnny Herbert, we've already told you, in third place. And Alesi's had a stop-go penalty. There seems to be an epidemic of stop-go penalties in this race, so and we think that there's a good chance that it was for passing under the pace car, and that may well be why Schumacher got his as well. I speculated, I wondered how Schumacher managed to get onto Senna's tail on the same lap when he'd had such a long pit stop during the pace car, and there is Herbert really charging. Johnny Herbert in third place. Senna in turn 1 with Hill closer still. And Alesi has dropped behind Mark Blundell because that's an old caption because of his stop-go penalty. But this is the battle for the lead.
And it looks as though Damon Hill is shaping up to take it. I remind you, he's got the power advantage and he's got the psychological advantage now of knowing that earlier in this Brazilian Grand Prix, he caught and passed 3 times world champion Ayrton Senna on his home ground. If he's done it once, surely he can do it again. Well, Senna goes through. It's Alboreto in front of him, holding him up in the Lola Ferrari. This gives Damon Hill the opportunity to close right up. And Senna dives through on the inside. Is Alboreto going to let Hill through? Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Yes, he has. Hill is still there. In fact, he's closer than ever to Ayrton Senna. And if he can get under the McLaren's wing here, it could be the lead for Damon Hill as he goes into the 48th lap. They're out of the top corner now. This is his opportunity.
Saw how Senna went into the corner slowly, and that's experience for you. Let Hill close up, and I expect that's oil and the mess on the screen, and the reason he goes into the corner slowly is so that he can get the power on much earlier, and you saw he got the power on earlier than Damon Hill there, was able to stretch his lead, and that spray coming up off Senna's tyres onto the lens on Hill's off-board camera. So Senna stretches the lead away down the back straight. So Senna survives the first crisis. That was a crisis from Senna's point of view. It was reflected on his heart monitor, but he's coming up to another crisis because just when he doesn't want it, as there are 2 more back markers in front of him, he wants to try and put them between him and Damon Hill. Well, that is Luca Badoer in the first one, and he's got a car between him and Hill, and that will make him feel a lot more comfortable. And I think that may be Alesi's Ferrari ahead of him. It is a dramatic race with stop-go penalty, and he doesn't want to be held up onto the straight because Hill is now behind Senna, but probably a bit too far behind, and in fact the Ferrari will now give Senna a bit of a tow. And so he holds onto his lead for another lap, and Alesi pulls out of the way, tucks in behind, and Senna's heart rate can now afford to drop a little bit. Let's have a look at it now, because no, producer doesn't want to show us, but the heat's off for maybe another half a lap or a lap, depending on what traffic's ahead. Alesi moves over, lets Hill go.
Well, Gentleman Jean has been letting him through. He's got a car that handles badly. He knows he can't hold them back indefinitely, so he might as well let them through straight away, especially as they were a lap, except for the length of his car ahead of him. Now they are a lap ahead of him, with Ayrton Senna leading on a rapidly drying track. This is lap 49. Damon Hill is in second place. Johnny Herbert is still third. JJ Leto, that you are looking at now, is in fourth position. In fifth place behind Leto is Marc Blundell in the Ligier. In sixth position in the second Lotus is Alessandro Zanardi. That's the first time he has been in the points in a Grand Prix. In seventh place is Philippe Alliot. Behind Philippe Alliot in eighth position is Michael Schumacher after his stop-go penalty. And we've had several of those, as you know, including, of course, Michael Schumacher. Alain Prost out of the race, having spun off in the wet and knocked the nose cone off his Williams. So if Ayrton Senna finishes second, never mind winning this race, he would lead the World Championship. That would surely encourage him to stay in Grand Prix racing and to give us the thrill of watching him against Alain Prost in the remaining 13 Grand Prix of this race after the Donington Grand Prix in 2 weeks' time. So Senna coming up now to complete another lap. So he's, although the Ford has got less horsepower, Senna has got this enormous ability and experience.
È vero. C'è più o meno quasi 2 secondi lì.
His chance of winning the World Championship, it's most important to Senna, and it seems stupid to have an engine that is more powerful than the one they're giving to McLaren, when Ford, after all, are in the business to try and win as well as to compete and to perform, but above all, they must surely want to win the World Championship, and this man certainly has to be their best chance to win the championship this year. Senna got enough lead now. Behind, there's plenty of excitement going on. Herbert is holding on to a good lead, some 20 seconds over Blundell, but Blundell, on the other hand, is catching JJ Leto, and the gap when they last crossed the line was only 5.5 seconds. So Mark Blundell closing down on Leto's 4th place.
If McLaren win this race, it would be their 100th Grand Prix victory. But they're on lap 51 now in this 71-lap race, and that's not going to happen if Damon Hill's got anything to do with it. As you can see, 1 minute 21.7, and that is some 2 seconds slower than Riccardo Patrese fastest lap last year when he was driving for Williams. And by the way, Riccardo Patrese long since disappeared, of course, from the race, and Ayrton Senna now is smoothly driving on. It's a wonderful testimony to the efficiency and the overall competence of the McLaren team as Senna goes through and passes Carl Wendlinger's Sauber Ilmor. It's a wonderful testimony to the efficiency of the McLaren team when you think that they did not do the deal with Ford to have the engine until December of last year, and that is Andrea De Cesaris, who's slowed right down in the Tyrrell Yamaha. And Schumacher is up to 6th position now. Ayrton Senna leading, Damon Hill 2nd, Johnny Herbert 3rd, Leto is 4th, Blundell is 5th, and up to 6th position ahead of Zanardi goes Schumacher. And I will finish my thought about McLaren by saying that they didn't even do the deal with Ford officially until December, and in that time, that very short time, they have designed and built a totally new car with extremely complicated tag electronics, which is doing the job in its 2nd race, leading.
Damon Hill has now established fastest lap of the race in his pursuit of Ayrton Senna, and that is Alesi. But we don't want to see that. We want to see the battle for the lead. Alesi is down in 9th place after his stop-go penalty and 1 or 2 other dramas, and there is the battle for the lead. On to the crucial corner onto the straight, and Mark Blundell has now got right onto, or getting onto JJ Leto's tail. I suspect Leto's in trouble because he's been, Blundell's been hauling him in at a couple of seconds a lap. But after his fine 3rd place in South Africa, a tremendous performance by Mark Blundell, and he qualified better this time. He was just over the requisite half a second quicker than Martin Brundle. Still not in the Schumacher league, because Brundle, of course, is the known quantity in that team from his form last year. And fastest lap now for Damon Hill. Yet again, Johnny Herbert, 3rd place. Herbert in a fairly safe 3rd place. He's well back and he's not being immediately challenged from behind, so he should really, he was looked to be marching on a bit there, but there's no need to, Johnny. Just secure the finish. 3rd place would do fine.
It certainly would, and he richly deserves it, because he's never finished higher than 4th. He's never been on the podium. I keep on saying this is a world champion in the making, Johnny Herbert, that we are looking at now after his terrible crash. And Mark Blundell has gone up to 4th position because JJ Leto is slowing down and has slipped to 5th position. So Mark Blundell's next target is the man you're looking at now. There are 3 Englishmen in the top 4, with Senna leading, Hill 2nd, Herbert 3rd, Blundell in 4th position.
Hill close to Senna there, but 1 car between them. And incidentally, Murray, what you didn't say, of course, the 4th place that Herbert, his best ever finish, was in his very first Grand Prix. And that was some achievement, and that really showed the outstanding talent that Johnny Herbert has, because he was, and that was soon after his very bad accident, and then he had big problems with, he wasn't fully fit at the time. Another fastest lap for Damon Hill. Lap time coming down every lap now. They're trading fastest laps. Senna 3 laps ago, then Hill the last 2 laps, and then another new one this time. But Senna has still got plenty of daylight between him and Hill, but there's still quite a long way to go. On the 54th laps of 71. But Senna now is, without doubt, driving an inspired race. He's got tremendous incentive in front of his home crowd, not just his home country of Brazil, but his hometown of Sao Paulo. And being in the lead of this will be worth 20 of that 50 or 60 horsepower deficit that he's got on the Williams Renault.
1991 it was that Ayrton Senna won his only Brazilian Grand Prix, and now Filipe Alliot in the Larousse Lamborghini is being caught by Senna, but is not being passed by him at the moment unless Filipe Alliot moves over, and he's not exactly famous for that. I remember Nigel Mansell and he had a colossal coming together in Portugal, but Senna is past him. Now is Damon Hill past the Frenchman in the Larousse Lamborghini? If he's not, he's lost time. And now it's Derek Warwick in the footwork Mugen, and Hill is held up. Hill is held up. Alliot is not conceding.
This is really Senna at his very best, because whereas normally, being in the lead, you are the man with the disadvantage in the traffic, Senna is actually playing the traffic to his advantage, and he's using the traffic to keep ahead, to keep enough daylight between him and Hill, because he's diving past the back markers. And this really is touch and go. And there is Mark Blundell in 4th place, now quite a comfortable 4th place. And Michael Schumacher now chips in with the fastest lap, but he's down, I believe, in 6th place. In 5th place. Schumacher up into 5th place. Well, sliding the car about, and that's a sign of confidence, and I was very hopeful that his 3rd place in South Africa would give him a real leg up in confidence, and it appears to have done so. Damon Hill probably passing the footwork of Derek Warwick.
And Mark Blundell driving an absolutely super race, the man who was out of Grand Prix racing last year when he was tester for the McLaren team, having previously been tester for the Williams team. So he's got a lot of experience of top-level racing cars with Williams and McLaren. But last year he drove in only one race. He won it, and what a race to win, the Le Mans 24-hour race, as a teammate to Derek Warwick in the Peugeot team. But Mark Blundell must be giving Martin Brundle a bit of an inferiority complex, because Mark finished well ahead of his Ligier Renault teammate in South Africa. 3rd place for Blundell, and now he is up into 4th position in his 2nd Grand Prix for his new team. And the Ligier team, of course, will be absolutely overjoyed as you watch Senna going through the left and the right immediately after the start and finish straight. They drop downhill, sweep left round the Curvo do Sol in 5th gear, up into the top straight, building up to 190 miles an hour as Damon Hill passes Luca Badoa in the Lola Ferrari to lap him again.
And I must say, Murray, I'm in awe of Ayrton Senna. He is making this McLaren absolutely fly through the traffic. He is throwing it through the damp patches. And another fastest lap to Michael Schumacher, and Schumacher showing what the Benetton can do, but albeit not in contention for the lead. Behind the Lotus. And I think it's Zanardi. And someone will want to be past him, because he just needs to keep that half second or so on Damon Hill in the traffic. There is Hill. And Hill really struggling in the traffic, but he's doing the right thing. He is right not to panic. 2nd place and 6 points from Damon Hill's point of view would be a wonderful result. It would not be as good as a win, but it would be better than no result. And he is right to take no risks at all. kept his head brilliantly so far. The pressure is very much on, getting towards the last 10 laps. We're on lap 58 out of 71. There is still time. There's quite a lot of traffic, but there's only 15, or less now, probably 12 or 13 cars actually running, and there are going to be gaps when Hill can get back on Senna's tail. But Senna is absolutely amazing me. He's making the car really fly. This is an awe-inspiring performance by Ayrton Senna.
And this, of course, is Damon Hill's first Grand Prix at real racing pace. The two that he had in the Brabham last year were by no means up at the front of the field, and the pressure was on it to finish rather than finish well, because there was no question of him doing that in that car. And in South Africa, his first real Grand Prix in a real Grand Prix car, the Williams Renault, he went off at the first corner, battled his way through until he was taken off by Zanardi, the man that he's got to get past now. So Damon Hill will be pretty cautious about that, and it wouldn't be at all surprising if Damon Hill was understandably getting a bit tired, because it's going to be the thick end of a 2-hour race before it finishes. We're on lap 59 now, with Senna leading Damon Hill by nearly 5 seconds and pulling away, with Michael Schumacher in 5th place, closing up on Mark Blundell, who is 4th.
Quite right. I was just going to observe that. Blundell's got to look to his laurels and look behind him, because Schumacher's got him in his sights, and he's really got the bit between his teeth and is flying. Ayrton Senna. Still keeping plenty of empty track between him and Damon Hill. Senna can, well, he can't really relax, because he needs to put all the track between himself and Hill that he can, because if they ever get into a really clear run, Hill is inevitably going to haul him in if he's really moving at as much as a second a lap, even without taking risks. And Senna, a new fastest lap. So Senna is really motoring. He's wringing more out of this car than one would have thought possible. And Hill's really dropped back some 6.5 seconds, more than 6.5 seconds now, but they've got a clear track. Now, can Hill settle down and try to close the gap? There's Johnny Herbert in a fairly comfortable 3rd place.
And Damon Hill, of course, was held up much more by Sandro Zanardi than the determined, thrusting Ayrton Senna was. Ayrton Senna is famous for his tactics in traffic. That's why he was quicker time after time than Alain Prost when they were both driving in the McLaren team together. Ayrton Senna is absolute magic in traffic. But now Damon Hill has got past Zanardi, who was holding him up, as you watch Johnny Herbert in 3rd position going through. It's still Mark Blundell in 4th place, but he's only 10 seconds now ahead of the ever-closing Michael Schumacher, who is in 5th place. Alessandro Zanardi is still in 6th position, but as you know, because you saw it happen, he has been lapped, and you're watching Johnny Herbert. Is he going to finish on the podium for Lotus for the first time in his career?
Well, he's holding the gap to Blundell very steadily. At around 12 seconds, it's actually 11.5 now, or the last time they crossed the line. But he will be also aware of the fact that Schumacher is coming in behind Mark Blundell, and he will certainly be ready to fend it off, but he should have enough in hand, because Schumacher's still not only got to catch Blundell, he's got to get past him. There's Senna in the inset. Herbert goes over the line, and we watch Herbert. I just hope that he's taking it steadily. He doesn't need to hurry. But this man is in a mighty big hurry, because he needs all the daylight he can get between himself and Damon Hill. Because he knows that Hill has the wherewithal to close that gap pretty quickly. Look at the crowd. The crowd waving like mad, and the weather is still unsettled. Having a look round, there's another storm cloud around.
Ayrton Senna, of course, is a demigod in Brazil, and if he wins here for only the second time in his career, it would make him even more popular, if that's possible to imagine. But what magnificent races. Damon Hill in second place, Johnny Herbert in third position, third Englishman Mark Blundell in fourth place are driving, with Michael Schumacher still behind them, but still catching, and Ford engine cars first and third, and the Renault engine of Damon Hill in second place.
I have a sneaking suspicion that Damon may have received orders from the Williams pit to take it easy and not to take up the cudgels and chase Ayrton Senna, but to settle for 6 points and to take it easy and to take the good points. I just get the feeling that Damon could be doing better than this if he was allowed to, but it would be in keeping. Frank Williams is a conservative thinker tactically, always has been, and he likes to see his cars finish, and there's nothing wrong with that. And we have news on Michael Andretti. He had a bump, and he's been through the scanner and has been found to be fit. So all is well with Michael Andretti, and that's very good news indeed.
And you can see here Mark Blundell in fourth position, and you just saw a flash in the previous shot of Michael Schumacher, who is fifth and is catching the Englishman. But there is Senna in the inset. Now watch both pictures if you can. Senna leading, there's Blundell fourth, behind him Schumacher fifth. But what a fantastic negotiating position Ayrton Senna is going to be in at the end of this race if he wins it. He will be able to say to Ron Dennis, there we are, I've given you a win in only the second race of your new car. He will be able to say to Ford, now give me the engine that's got the horsepower and I'll continue to win for you. And there he is in the inset. We are now on lap 63 out of 71, and it does indeed look as though Ayrton Senna is on his way to his second Brazilian Grand Prix win.
Yes, and I don't think that we're looking at Damon Hill now, and I'm not sure that it's tactical. I now think that maybe Hill has slowed down a lot, and maybe he's got a problem, in which case Herbert will be aware of that and could start looking to be chased. But here is the battle for fourth place at the moment, but it would appear that Hill is likely to have some sort of a problem, because if he'd been told to take it easy, he wouldn't be slowing down by over a second a lap. Which is what he's losing, more than a second a lap to Ayrton Senna now. So Ayrton Senna now well established, and it looks as if he only has to stand up to win.
Well, there's 40 seconds between Johnny Herbert, who is third, and Damon Hill, who is in second place. So even if Hill has got a problem, he's got a lot in reserve. But Mark Blundell most certainly has not for fourth position, because the charging Michael Schumacher has overcome his 10-second penalty stop-go situation in the pits. He's right on the tail of Mark Blundell in the Ligier Renault, who looks as though he's about to lose fourth position as they come into the top straight. Now, this is where Schumacher will close right up, but he's got less power than Blundell, so that's incredible bit of driving.
Yes, let's watch the Renault car here, because it's a second division Renault engine, but it's still a very powerful engine, and theoretically more powerful than the pneumatic valves Cosworth that Michael Schumacher enjoys. But Schumacher getting out of the pit chicane more quickly. Bit of earth on the track there that's been scuffed onto it by somebody who's obviously erred from the straight and narrow. Mark Blundell under pressure. And pressure is always greater when you know it's one of the chargers behind you, because Schumacher certainly is that. And he's got inside, but not enough. And Blundell coolly sticks to his line, sticks to his guns. He's going to have a go here, though. But this would be a mistake, because if Schumacher did get in front of him, if he dived inside there, for sure, Blundell would pass him on the straight. Now, let's compare engine power here. Remember, of course, that Schumacher is in the slipstream. He has the benefit of the hole in the air made by the Ligier. And he's made it. Just a little grab on the left front brake there, puff of smoke, but Schumacher's made it inside, and that was a beautifully judged overtaking manoeuvre. See it again. Puff of smoke, and right on the limit. Blundell held very well, but Schumacher was not to be denied. Immense talent. Schumacher takes 4th place, and he should be able to hold it down the back straight and then build his lead through the infield.
A better corner for Ligier than the same one last year when Thierry Boutsen drove straight into the side of Eric Comas and neatly removed both the Ligiers, to the intense displeasure of Monsieur Guy Ligier, who is he's a pretty difficult bloke to meet when he's in a good mood. So what he's like when he's in a bad one, I can't imagine. But Ayrton Senna now looks as though on the 66th lap, with only 67, 68, 69, 70 and 71, 5 laps to go at the end of this one, is going to achieve a brilliant, historic Grand Prix win, because it would be the first for the new McLaren MP4/8, the first for a Ford engine since Michael Schumacher won at Spa in the Benetton last year. And as I said a few moments ago, Senna will have, metaphorically, his tail very high indeed, knowing that he's in a tremendously strong position, A, to get more money for himself, and he's keen on that, and B, in comparison with Johnny Herbert, who is still in 3rd position, but he is being caught by Michael Schumacher. Johnny Herbert is being caught by Michael Schumacher, and Herbert is in danger of not achieving that much-desired podium position, 3rd place. 18 seconds between Senna and Hill. So Hill has either decided to settle for 2nd, or something about the car has decided it for him. But as James has said, if Damon Hill finishes in 2nd place in only his 2nd Grand Prix for Williams, having started from the front row of the grid, it would be a superb and very well-deserved achievement, which would really raise his morale for the remaining 14 Grand Prix of the season.
Yes, absolutely. This is just the race that Damon needs. It's been wet, it's been the safety car's been out, and he's come through it all, and he will have a much greater understanding from this of what a long slog a Grand Prix is, and how patience is a virtue that is much rewarded in Grand Prix racing, oddly enough, as we know it's a sprint, but it's a long sprint. Senna now untroubled, but the excitement behind is over. Johnny Herbert now, who has got very charged up Michael Schumacher, aiming at him. The gap, but Lacey is between them, and that will work in Herbert's favour. As they crossed the line last time, the gap was 4 seconds. Now Herbert, if he stays cool, and there is Johnny Herbert, should be able to fend it off, and there is Schumacher, and Schumacher is absolutely flying, but being denied by Lacey, who's 2 laps out of contention, and that will give Herbert a bit of breathing space, because Herbert also has a Ford engine, but he has a Division 3 Ford engine, and he certainly will be no match in the straight for Schumacher, and Schumacher, if he can get onto his tail coming onto the straight, is going to power past the Lotus of Johnny Herbert, and things look bad for Herbert now. They're on lap 68, still 3 more to go after this, as we see Schumacher, the replay, going past the lady who did the gentlemanly thing and made room there. Now, this is a big test also for Johnny Herbert. He would love to get 3rd place, it would be his best result, but again, he has got to get onto the straight. He needs good half a dozen lengths over Schumacher as they go onto the straight. If he can keep this lead as they go into the last corner, he'll be all right for this lap. But still 3 more afterwards. There's Senna, but Senna now untroubled, as I said before, only has to stand up to win. Now Herbert gets onto the power early. Now Schumacher will be picking up the tow from the Lotus. Herbert's going to have to go to the inside to defend his position. He'll be all right this time. But he's got to fend him off twice more, and then once more as far as the finish line after this. And Schumacher's got to run at him down this straight. And Schumacher's got the line into the corner. Schumacher goes through and takes second place, and Herbert's back inside him, and he was too quick going in. Tremendous stuff, wheel to wheel, and well done, Johnny Herbert. Herbert saw his chance. He forced Schumacher. We see a replay now. Now Schumacher's down the inside. Herbert obviously held off the brakes long enough to make Schumacher have to enter quicker than he wanted. And look at that. And Herbert saw the gap, got onto the power. Terrific stuff by Herbert. But can he continue to hold him off? I doubt it.
Lap 17, Ayrton Senna, race leader, is on his last lap but one. Only one lap after this between him and the checkered flag for the second time in Brazil, and what a wonderful victory it would be. But what an equally wonderful second place it would be for Damon Hill, and who is going to be third? A terrific struggle, the like of which we haven't seen for a long time between these two, as Schumacher once again uses the superior speed of his Benetton to get through at the end of the finish straight into the left-hander, then the right, dropping downhill, now climbing again, and he should be able to pull away now because he's coming up to the top straight where he will be able to use the superior power unbothered by Johnny Herbert. You can see the gap is increasing, so Schumacher third, Johnny Herbert is in fourth position. In fifth place behind them it is still Mark Blundell, then a lap down the second Lotus of Zanardi in sixth place, and Senna is into his last lap.
Yes, and as the skies darken again, that it won't be a problem for now for Ayrton Senna. He has an enormous lead and could bucket down with rain, and he'll still tiptoe round to the line. He just wants the mechanicals of his McLaren to hold together, and he's waving already. Don't do that. Remember what happened to Nigel Mansell in Canada a couple of years back when he started waving to the crowd before the end of the race, and Sod's Law bit him. But a wonderful victory for Ayrton Senna, the crowd going absolutely wild, and to hell with negotiations and money. The important thing for Grand Prix racing is that this victory, if such it is, because I hate to see a driver wave before it's finished, it's so many things can trip you up, but the important thing is that this will encourage Ayrton Senna to stay for the season, and that's what we need. We don't mind what he gets paid and what his negotiations are. We want to see the best driver in Grand Prix racing, the best driver in the world by a long way. We want to see him racing in Grand Prix racing, even if it is an inferior car. As he comes to the flag, he could still beat Alain Prost for the championship.
And it will be his 37th Grand Prix win, and Ayrton Senna, to the delirious delight of his countrymen, wins in Brazil in his own time. Slows right down. This is the best thing that could possibly have happened for Grand Prix racing, and Senna's looking for that Brazilian flag, which is always ready for him, and here in Brazil he's got it. Now I say this is the best thing that could possibly have happened for Grand Prix racing, because so many people feared that Prost and Williams were going to dominate Grand Prix racing in 1993. Well, Damon Hill has finished second, but Ayrton Senna has won a magnificent victory. There is Damon Hill, and in third position it's Michael Schumacher ahead of Johnny Herbert in the Lotus. So McLaren wins, Williams second, Benetton third, and Johnny Herbert about 4 car lengths behind in the Lotus finishes in fourth place. Mark Blundell in the Ligier, making it 5 different constructors in the top 5, finishes in 5th place, the last one to go the full 71 laps. Sandro Zanardi finishes in 6th place. Philippe Alliot for La Rousse, and that's a good finish, is in 7th place. Alesi is 8th. In 9th position, Derek Warwick, excellent in last year's footwork. In 10th position, Eric Comas in the second La Rousse, encouragement for them. 11th and 12th, the 2 Lola Ferraris of Michele Alboreto and Luca Badoer.
now go to the European Grand Prix at Donington buoyant, and it's the first time, I think, well, it's not in fact the first time, but certainly in this 1923 season, that Damon will be on a racetrack with which he is very familiar indeed. He will know it from Formula 3, he will know it from Formula 3000. He's tested there, and look at this, the crowd, if you thought Silverstone was bad, the crowd here at Interlagos have gone mad. Ayrton Senna has come to a standstill, and if there's anything left of that McLaren MP48, by the time the officials get to him, well, I'll be surprised.
If we continue the results here, Senna and Hill, then Michael Schumacher, a very good drive, fight till the end. Johnny Herbert, he equals his best result, and it's his best result in a Lotus. He finishes 4th, and that's his first points of the season.
The guys, look at them, they're standing on the car completely covered, you cannot see now. Look at this. Well, dear me, I've never seen anything quite so wild as the scenes here at Interlagos. Somewhere in the middle of that, there he is, Ayrton Senna. Well, the guy will be very happy to get out of that throng. It is absolutely wild down at the Curva di Lago.
While these scenes continue, the car's probably stopped, and they can't push start it, so I think he's got to wait for the tow truck or Professor Watkins to go and pick him up.
Well,
anyway, Blundell, a very good 5th position. Zanardi, the last point for Lotus. 7th, Philippe Elio. 8th, Jean Alesi. 9th, Derek Warwick. 10th, Eric Comas. 11th, Michele Alboreto. And 12th was Luca Badour. And all these cars were running right at the end. Well, there's a fight going on.
Yeah, the marshals are trying to get Ayrton Senna now, and he will be emotionally probably drained. And of course the crowd just trying to fight the way to just to touch the man, touch the car, a memory that will last them through their lifetime. And look, you see officials, a little bit of fisticuffs going on at the back of Senna's car, but that's just over enthusiasm. Well, now the crowd are running across the track. Marshals are trying to prevent them from doing so.
John, the situation is as follows: that Ayrton Senna leads the World Championship by 10 points from Alain Prost. And who would have thought that was going to be the case when we all go to Donington? With his 2nd place, Damon Hill moves up to 3rd place in the Drivers' Championship, with Mark Blundell moves up to 3rd place in the Drivers' Championship together with Damon Hill. Michael Schumacher scores his first points of the year. He and Johnny Herbert both did not score down in South Africa.
Well, these scenes, so we've seen them at Silverstone over many years for Nigel Mansell, but this, I have to say, lacks the control of the British crowd, and the military police out, truncheons drawn, and now Ayrton Senna, Damon Hill and Michael Schumacher are being brought back in different cars to the podium ceremony.
Well, also, yeah, Mark Blundell was stopped in there somewhere, and well, look at this.
There we are coming. This is the Curva di Lago. This is the part of the circuit that we saw Johnny Herbert defend valiantly that 3rd place, but eventually he had to concede it to Michael Schumacher. Ayrton Senna now,
he loves it, doesn't he?
Well, absolutely. I mean, why not? The guy, how many years did he wait until he won his first Grand Prix in Brazil? Now he's won his 2nd one, and it's come in a way he didn't expect. He knew that when he came to Brazil that the Renault V10 would outpower him, the downforce that Williams could then build into the car, and instead of just having a high top speed, they just adjusted their top speed to that of the opposition and used the downforce to make the car then handle and accelerate out of corners that much quicker than the opposition. Well, rain was the factor that made this result happen today, and I suppose somebody in Brazil must love Ayrton Senna, or the old Macumba, famous Fittipaldi Macumba. I've seen Emerson Fittipaldi win Grand Prix, and in the audience in those days back in the early 70s, particularly in Barcelona, there was a samba band playing away, and there was one of Emerson Fittipaldi's relations who is into black magic, and they made a bit of black magic work for Fittipaldi that memorable day in 73.
While Ayrton's pulse rate is going down to 143 at the moment, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with the rostrum and, of course, the post-race interviews.
Antes del podium, safety car, La imagen es fantástica, ¿eh? Enseguida se ha montado aquí una caravana de...
Espectacular.
De coches de la organización.
Y de la policía, sí.
Espectacular. Todo el... Sí, algo impensable. Y, bueno, evidentemente es una situación muy peligrosa la que hemos visto, una situación muy caótica, muy desordenada, pero... Evidentemente no puede ser hoy en día. Ahí es el helicóptero cerquísima. Y en ese coche Medical Car me ha parecido que era Sid Watkins el que iba dentro. Pues ha saludado. Le ha dado la mano de inmediato. No, mira.
No, aquí en el safety car no va, en el medical seguro.
No. En el medical sí, pero es que el que conduce no
es... este.
Ah, míralo.
Mira,
sí.
El rescue.
Sí. Es que en ese medical car, ahora por el casco, es un expiloto brasileño. Ahora no me sale el nombre, ahora no recuerdo. No recuerdo su nombre. Ahí está, la enorme devoción que Senna
Welcome back here at Interlagos in Sao Paulo. You're watching Ayrton Senna being driven back to the pits where he's going to go up to the rostrum and get his trophies. And the cheers of the crowds in front of the pits already have been enormous. There have been fireworks and it's electric, John.
Well, this is what Brazil is like for a Grand Prix, particularly when a Brazilian driver is the man going to take the podium position. And Ayrton Senna now making his way finally back to the start-finish line. And he is absolutely... I think he can't believe his luck, to be truthful. But to be fair to him, he made his own luck. He had that stop-go penalty. He did the right thing in coming in and putting on wet tyres when the circuit was at its wettest. And really an outstanding effort from the entire Marlboro McLaren Ford team.
Well, Johnny Herbert finishing in 4th, Alessandro Zanardi finishing in 6th. That means both Lotus cars are in the points, and then must be a very happy Peter Collins sitting next to me. Peter, how happy are you?
Yeah, I'm very happy, in fact. I think the two drivers did a great job, and they've also made very good tactical decisions. They came in at the right moment. Johnny was the first one to come back in for slicks after it rained, and I think he drove an excellent race, and unfortunately just couldn't quite hold Schumacher off at the end. So a little disappointing, but very pleased to be 4th and 6th.
Well, Peter, I don't know if you were able to see a monitor, but we watched that battle between Schumacher and Johnny Herbert, and in fact Johnny fought to the last inch of the racetrack. He knew that he had to do sometimes things that you don't always want to do, but literally just more grunt. The 7 Series HB just outgunned you in terms of sheer speed.
Well, I think that's probably true, but also there's no doubt today our car wasn't as quick as the Benetton, but that's something we hope to rectify by the next race, and I think Johnny's shown that he's more than happy to race with the best.
Johnny's happy to race with the best, you're happy to race with the best. You've also hired a new director of racing, Trevor Foster. The team is growing and growing, and it's getting better, and the results should be coming soon, Peter.
Well, that's certainly what we're looking for, and we're working towards that.
Well, thank you very much for popping up to our commentary position. Actually, John, I think we should hope more team managers do this at the end of a race.
Well, I know there are a few team managers in the past who've graced us with their time in the pits and in the commentary position, but there are others that maybe feel that that's not their place. But thank you, Peter, for dropping in, and congratulations, a great team results, and say hello to Johnny and to Alessandro from us here at Eurosport. Well, the cheers go up for Ayrton Senna and Ron Dennis alongside him, and Ron really, again, must be over the moon. You know, in a funny way, Ron Dennis and the McLaren team have lucked in, because when they lost the Honda engine, they got the best possible alternative. They got the Ford HB. That was the only engine that was available, but what an engine it is. Another victory for Ford. And, well, I just hope that this result is going to enable the two principals involved in this long and protracted negotiation about will I, won't I, and how much for. Let's hope that this is the catalyst that brings together all those parties, and we can see Ayrton Senna racing for the entire season for the Marlboro McLaren Ford team.
Ayrton Senna won his 37th Grand Prix. The second time he won in Brazil. Damon Hill on the left. A very good effort, Damon. Congratulations for second place.
And I think we're going to see Damon Hill up on the podium very often indeed, because that was a very good race. He showed the maturity. He made up for the errors that he made in South Africa, particularly at the start of the Grand Prix when he just lost control of the car. That has rebuilt all that confidence, that ability we knew was there. 2 weeks' time, I can't wait to go to Donington Park, because I'm sure we're going to see some fireworks from Damon Hill.
And not only from Damon Hill, let's hope we see him from Ayrton Senna as well, because it is a circuit which suits the McLaren Ford. It is like Kyalami, high downforce, and the McLaren Ford has got plenty of downforce.
It's going to be a racer's circuit, Allard. It's going to be tight, it's going to be a tough Grand Prix, but it's ultimately, in my mind, a racer's Grand Prix.
Ayrton Senna first, Damon Hill second, and Michael Schumacher in third. Well, this was Interlagos. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll be back in 2 weeks' time from Donington. How can you go in the middle of the national anthem?
Aí está a premiação. Ayrton Senna, campeão. Os troféus já foram entregues.
Venga, ahora puedes dejar la copa y hay que hacerlo del champán. Porque era así, efectivamente, en el primer podium de Damon Hill. Ahí está, la ceremonia del champán, de la que no se libra ni tan siquiera Juan Manuel Fangio. Ahí vemos a Schumacher lanzándolo directamente hacia abajo, y con esta ceremonia habitual de fiesta y regocijo, vemos a un Senna muy feliz por esta victoria. Sería la última victoria en su casa, la última victoria en Brasil, y después de haberla disfrutado aquí en Movistar Televisión. Joan, muchas gracias por estar con nosotros.
Ha sido un placer.
Y a todos vosotros, pues también, por supuesto, os damos las gracias por estar con nosotros y os emplazamos a seguir aquí con nosotros en Movistar Televisión.